which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like everyone to stand for a moment of silence for the passing of Councilman Bill Tracy. If you would do that, please. Thank you. Mr. Gears, please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Here.
Mrs. Hoover.
Here.
Ms. Royce.
Here.
Mr. Kelsch.
Here.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Here.
Mr. Thompson. Here. Mr. Brady.
Here. All members present. Moving on to amendment of agenda. We have 2 items this evening to add. Under item I, we have Streets and Infrastructure Committee report from Mrs. Franzen. And item P, we have communications. We would like to add the June report of Mayor's Court. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. A motion that we amend agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Braden. Mrs. Franzen.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Franzen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item F, minutes of previous meeting, June 28th, 2022. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to approve the minutes. Mrs. Hoover.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item H, request to address council. We have one request this evening from Bishop Sonny James. Bishop James.
Good evening. First, greetings to every one of you. A couple of weeks ago, Hamilton County Commissioner Alicia Reese did a wonderful job hosting another relief-a-thon where residents were able to acquire rent payments up to a year, their water bills paid, and their Duke bill paid. So I first want to extend that. I was given personal knowledge that some of the funding is still yet available. So for any of our residents who do not or have not been able to apply, didn't know where to go, what have you, you can go to hcjfs.org. Again, that's hcjfs.org. And you'll scroll down to where you see rent and utility help avoid evictions. And you'll look to the right of that and you'll click, there's an arrow there that says rent and utility help. You click that and apply, and you gather all of your documentation, and then you just simply submit it through. So they were even helping, I believe, with the water bill even in Norwood. So if some of our residents in Norwood still need help with this assistance, you can go to hcjfs.org. And we just want to make sure that everybody has an equal shot at getting any assistance that might be available. Now, once the funds run out, it's gone. So, sometimes they say the early bird gets the worm, but God really blessed us with that. Wanted to come tonight. I want to make sure that my heart is heard. I'm not against police on any level, anywhere in the world. In fact, most of you know my youngest son, Lemuel, is in the Marines now. and he desires to come back again to Norwood and to serve. But I want to just address a couple of issues that when you look at what happened up north and when you look at what happens around the country, we still see that there's a lot of heightened stress and tension regarding the races and the powers to be. And I just want to help a little bit, if I can, with how perception happens. A few days ago, and many of you can look this up, all of the officers are aware of it, several officers were called onto Lincoln Avenue for an individual for an eviction process. In fact, I just happened to be in the area, coincidentally. But then it wasn't a coincidence the next day when the Norwood police were called back out to the same residence. Now, I shouldn't have a big problem with that, but there's one issue. The female officer the day before, which we all know, and our legal department will know this especially, forcible evictions are illegal. And it opens us up and opens up the homeowners to lawsuits. And so the resident was told, I'll be back at 10 o'clock in the morning and you better not be here. So obviously I got a phone call. So the next day I was able to be there to just help remind of the law and the code and the statutes that follow. And we were able to work it out to where the residents were not that much in stress. Now the problem that I had with that, as I explained to the officers, if you go through the legal process, I don't have a problem as long as everyone is treated fairly. The problem is there was a little boy on the porch watching all of these officers surround people that he looks up to as a hero. And you guys, my whole thing is, the law is the law. So even when police are called out, there's still a protocol that they have to approach people and communicate with others. Well, that was one incident. But on July 4th, I noticed, and those who were with me recorded it, as our officers had to approach an individual that had been complained on from the speedway. But as the gentleman was saying, I'm having a hard time breathing and I'm not feeling well, to see my fellow officers chuckle. And they'll tell you, I followed them all the way back to Speedway, parked right next to them, and heard all of the dialogue and all of it being recorded. And my thing is this, guys, as we're continuing to make improvements, which we are, let me say that for the record, which we are, there are little pockets and little things that we still need to address, and we can address them together in a nice, calm way. I'm not looking to hate on anybody, but if somebody says, I can't breathe, or I'm not feeling well, we probably should get a medic. It's just a couple of blocks down the street, somebody to look after them. So we'll be addressing those later in the appropriate manner, but we're doing a great job here in Norwood. Let's keep moving forward. I'm really pleased with a lot of things that's happening. I really am. But when these kind of pockets happen, we just have to address them. I'm sure all of you will look into it and just make sure every protocol was appropriately matched. God bless you all.
Moving on to item I, reports of standing committees of council, streets and infrastructure. Mrs. Franzen.
We, the Streets and Infrastructure, to whom was referred a public hearing on proposed changes to Montgomery Road pedestrian safety and accessibility, beg leave to submit the following report. City Administration and JMA Consultants presented the proposed changes to Montgomery Road from Elm Avenue to Victory Park to the public and council. Issues with sidewalk maintenance were also discussed, as were potential alternate bike routes. This remains in committee as we await word from SORTA on whether the grant that the consultants are submitting will be accepted or not. Respectfully submitted by myself, Emily Franzen, Chairperson, Ms. Alexis Rice, and Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mrs. Franzen. Mr. Thompson.
Move we accept and file the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to accept and file the minutes. Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item K, second reading of ordinance and resolutions. K1, ordinance amending section 505.071 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norwood, Ohio, entitled Cruelty to Companion Animals. Mrs. Hoover.
Make a motion to have the second reading of the ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to have the second reading of the ordinance. Mrs. Winbauer.
My second.
Second by Mrs. Winterbauer. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the second reading?
Ordinance amending section 505.071 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norwood, Ohio, entitled Cruelty to Companion Animals.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Moving on to item N, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? And we'll move on to new business. Any new business this evening? Mrs. Hoover.
I just have two things. One, I wanted to schedule a meeting for the Housing Committee. Was hoping to do it next week and wanted to see what folks' availability is. Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of that week. Tuesday? 6? Housing.
Any day but Thursday.
Can you do Tuesday at 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Did she have two things?
Oh, sorry. I was putting it in my calendar. The others, gotta make sure it's down. The other thing, real quick, the Off-Pike Market is gonna be this Saturday from 9 to 1, next to Victory Park on Mills. I'm gonna have a table there just sort of as a council person. I'm gonna have some material from the rec center, from City Hall. Opportunity for folks to come and ask me questions, to tell me what your thoughts and feelings and concerns are. I had an opportunity to, Alexis is gonna be able to come by, Candace is gonna be by, Emily is always there selling schlepping her honey. And of course, I would invite anyone else who wants to come, just casual chat with residents. That's it, thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Hoover. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I want to call a meeting of the Finance Committee for Thursday, the 14th at 6:30 to discuss then and now policy, a claim that we've got, potential for getting iPads for council, and some financial recovery plan updates.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. I just did that back to back. Mr. Thompson, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mrs. Franzen.
I'm glad we're all the same to you. It's
Yeah.
understandable. I wanted to note for those that didn't watch the Infrastructure Committee but might be interested in what these plans are, that the plans are available downstairs in City Hall. Anytime that the building is open, you're welcome to stop by and take a look. And if you have any feedback on it, now is the time to let me know. The grant is submitted, but some of the finer points, of course, is something that we can figure out if we end up getting the grant.
Thank you, Mrs. Franzen. Mrs. Winterbauer.
I would like to schedule Economic Committee meeting, and to space it out, maybe we'll look at the first week of August. So that would be Mr. Braden, Ms. Hoover, Ms. Royce. Would the first week work of August?
August?
The first week, yeah. Is there a day that?
Anyone but Monday or Thursday.
Okay. Do we want to stick to Tuesday?
Fine.
So Tuesday, the
That's
2nd, 6? 6 o'clock?
August the 2nd at 6?
August the 2nd at 6.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it? That's great. Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Hoover, did you say Tuesday the 6th?
No.
Or, I'm sorry, Tuesday at 6, July 19th?
Correct.
Thank you, thank you.
Anyone else? We've been asked to schedule a public hearing for August the 23rd. The Norwood Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding proposed zoning ordinance amendments, and after listening to testimony, the Norwood Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend council approve the attached amendments to the Norwood zoning ordinance based on sections 1117.10 and 1117.11 of the Norwood Codified Ordinance. Upon receipt of the recommendations of the Planning Commission, Norwood City Council shall schedule a public hearing to be set no earlier than 30 days from the receipt of this memorandum. So we'll set that for August 23rd.
What date is that?
August 23rd. Anyone else? Any further new business?
During the regular council meeting.
If not, then we'll move on to item P, communications, June report of the Mayor's Court.
Dear President and members of council, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of June 2022. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Victor Snyder, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Mr. Braden.
Motion to receive and file the communications.
Motion by Mr. Braden, receive and file. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Winterbauer. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item R, adjournment. May I have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Braden.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion by Mr. Braden. May I have a second? Mrs. Royce.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Royce. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. We are adjourned.
Sorry.